There it is.
There what is? Oh, wow.
Bryn had emerged from the hut as she had been napping. A massive island was slowly coming up from the horizon, and the closer Rin got to it, the more intense her heart and stomach were vibrating. Even from that distance, she saw that most of the island had been covered in the greenest, tallest trees and bushes she had ever seen. The water around the island was clearer than anything she had ever seen before, too. Hundreds of fish swam beneath the water, which is what Lycos gawked at the most. The fish were gigantic.
Is this an island of giants? Where are we?
No, there are no giants who live here. In fact, I'm fairly positive that no one lives here, so it's safe.
Okay, hold on. How do you know that? Have you been here before?
Yeah, it's a complicated story. It's not important, but this is where I was born. I don't really like dwelling in the past, and so can we please not go into it? I knew this island existed, and it would be the perfect spot to catch a really powerful swell just west of here. The swell blows right to where the Siratasi Island is. In fact, the swell actually blows past that and goes all the way to the Shinado Islands too.
Rin narrowed her eyes when a slight ache formed in her chest.
You're not from the Shinado tribe? And you never told me?
Listen, I promise I'll tell you my whole story when all this is over. I didn't want to keep it from you, and for all intents and purposes, the Shinado Islands, specifically our island, is my home. A home that I love. I thought that bringing you here would keep you safe from the storm.
Masita averted her eyes, and then they became quite moist. Rin moved up to her, and then hugged her from the front. Unexpectedly, Lycos hugged her from the back.
I'm sure you had your reasons, but I expect as your best friend to hear the whole story.
Masita wrapped her arms around Rin's torso.
I promise. You two are the best.
They all stepped back away from one another, and Rin saw. Lycos made a slight motion to reach out and touch Masita, but then stopped, and then stared dead into Rin's eyes.
I knew it!
Rin pointed to Lycos, then swiftly turned her finger to her best friend.
You two kissed. Admit it.
Immediately, Lycos' cheeks flushed with a bright crimson, and Masita began laughing hysterically.
Yep, you sure figured it out. We totally kissed and nothing else. How about that island, huh? We can stop for the night and then be on our way.
Yes, the island. That is a great idea.
Okay. But I'm watching you two. No funny business.
Rin watched them turn away from one another, most likely embarrassed at having their secret figured out. She smiled wide as she stood on the front part of the canoe, gazing toward the nameless island. Was this really where Masita came from? There weren't any people here, and it was so far from the other islands. A sudden odd thought came to mind. She had never met Masita's parents. Her stomach jostled angrily, and she wasn't sure if it was caused by the island or by Masita's revelation. Did it really matter where she came from? Masita was still her best friend, and they spent nearly every day together ever since she was like 5. No matter what Masita revealed to her, it wouldn't change how she felt. She was sure of it. They managed to get close enough to the island to pull it on shore, so Rin leapt from it onto the beach.
Ha! I'm the first one!
As soon as her feet hit the sand, a strange thing happened. A large arc of lime green light extended from where she stood, and it rippled out into the land as if it were water. The energy slithered across the beach and down into the jungle.
Whoa! What was that?
Rin squatted down and gazed all around, but everything was quite still. Lycos leapt off of the canoe and reached for her.
Come on, it's not safe.
As soon as his foot hit the sand, another arc of lime green energy rippled off of him and traveled into the jungle. Lycos froze.
Are you two okay?
Yeah, I don't feel any different. Did you remember this island doing that when you lived here?
No, I don't.
I don't feel any different either. That was still weird.
Masita took a deep breath and then jumped out onto the beach right beside Rin. Nothing happened.
We should leave right now.
Why? Isn't this your home?
Suddenly, a bright light as brilliant as the sun glimmered behind Rin. When she turned around, someone was behind her.
And no matter how much I get on him, that damned brat of mine just keeps on gorging himself. Oh, darling, what am I to do?
Can you really blame him? It's in his nature. And unfortunately, he was burdened with the curse of gluttony and never being satisfied. I'm sure he can't actually help it.
I know, but it's unfair.
A powerful tremor rippled inside her, and Sudaiba's body locked up rigidly. She let out a loud gasp, and to her surprise, she was not the only one. Sudaiba looked about the viewing area, around the magic pool, and saw her other primary lover, her wife Ueda, sitting beside their son Valdo. She gazed upward, and her arms were bunched to her chest.
Mother! Mom! Are you two okay?
Ueda started to breathe easier, and she hunched over. A slight weakness filtered over Sudaiba, and she fell to her knees. Kavita was beside her, rubbing her back. Likewise, Ladia Denoy was right beside her, as was Wasayu near Ueda. The other gods and goddesses watched from afar.
What's wrong, my darling? Are you two in pain?
No, not pain. But there is a throbbing.
It's like being parched. Like I haven't drank any water in a long time. And now, it's a rush.
Yes, that's exact.
Another ripple warbled in her, and she shuddered for a moment. This one wasn't as intense, but it was definitely strong.
Does anyone else feel it? Or is it just us?
No one spoke up, and the smaller sun goddess walked up to Sudaiba, who was now standing with the help of Kavita and Ladia Denoy.
Why just us? Is it something connected to both of us? All of our children are here and accounted for.
As soon as she said it, a deep searing sourness formed in her stomach, and Ueda spoke her innermost thoughts.
Not all of her children.
Sudaiba felt her eyes begin to moisten, and upon seeing Ueda having the same reaction, a small bit of warmth began wiggling its way out of the sourness. Still, it might not be that. As much as she and Ueda wanted Maoryu, their youngest, to awaken, it might not be that. She approached the mystic pool and then waved her hand. The image on the orb changed.
Is that where I think it is?
You bet it is!
Sudaiba's fists clenched, and she tightened her jaw. Two Aoela stood on the beach of an island that had been denied to them, a place that was meant to be left alone and sacred. And the sea goddess watched a woman jump onto the beach. Someone else gasped, someone who wasn't Ueda. Her eyes drifted to the source. Mojo Jala stood up from where he had been sitting, and he stared at the screen. His mouth was ajar, and he was unblinking for many moments. No one said anything, for this animated display had been just as alarming as the Great Spirit Mother talking. The poor god of stories had been silent ever since.
Balia, you still exist.
What?
Sudaiba glared closer, and the longer she stared at the third Aoela, the more she knew. While her true self was locked away, the aura of her goddess nature was identifiable.
She is going to have much to answer for.
Sudaiba started to move toward the sea, but she noticed her wife Uida's body. Her entire form was coated in brilliant fire. Her face was locked in a savage sneer, and she had both of her fists balled. And then, she was gone. Sudaiba sprinted for the sea.
Damn you! You're going to get there first!
Masita took a deep breath and then jumped onto the beach, right beside Rin. Nothing happened.
We should leave right now.
Why? Isn't this your home?
Suddenly, a bright light, as brilliant as the sun, glimmered behind Rin. Masita's heart lurched within her, and she stepped back, only to hear the sound of the thunderous sloshing of water. She turned her head from the brightness to see a massive wave splash on the shore, and then the water began taking shape. In that moment, Masita wondered, who was scarier between the sun and the sea? Just as Masita expected, a tall feminine form rose up from the water. The woman had long, black, flowing hair that had a slight azure sheen to it. Her eyes were the most clear blue that Masita had ever seen, and those eyes were dark and brooding. A small frown existed beneath her nose. The sea goddess wore a long, dark, bluish-gray dress that went all the way to the sand.
Move, girl!
A short woman pushed past Rin and stomped up to Masita. By comparison, Uida was Masita's current size. The sun goddess had a short, pixie-cut hairstyle that was colored bright red with bright yellow highlights in it. Everything about Uida was small, except for her fierceness and her temper. She wore a bright red and orange dress that went to her mid-thigh. Lycos stepped back away from the taller of the goddesses.
Rin? Masita? Are they?
Boy, quiet! My wife and I must deal with this one. Where do we even begin with you?
Uida got in Masita's face, and she poked her hard in the chest.
Do you have any idea how worried we've all been? You just left without telling anyone where you were. That is so irresponsible. We thought you were dead.
Sudaiba rounded from behind, and she crossed her arms over her chest.
What are you even doing here? What are you even doing on the Voyage? You're not helping them cheat, are you?
No! I would never, I swear! As to why we're here, I wanted to avoid Otatala's storm and keep them safe. I have to help see them through this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I didn't know that was going to happen.
You don't mean to cause trouble? Just like I don't mean to light up the sky?
I mean it. Things are different. I have to help them.
Why? Why is this so important to you?
Immense pain squeezed Masita's heart, her soul and her mind. There was no evading this one, and she cried as she spoke.
I had to repay a debt. I'm sorry.
Rin pushed past the sun goddess and wrapped Masita in a hug. Through wet and matted eyes, she watched her best friend glare at two of the most powerful beings in existence.
Please stop. Masita is a good person. I don't care if she's a demigoddess or something. She's my best friend, and she's never meant anyone harm.
Masita? And you think she's a demigoddess?
I don't care what she is. The only thing that matters is that she's my best friend. For the last 15 years, she's been with me every step of the way. She's the most loyal, wonderful person I have ever met. So please, go easy on her.
Lycos took gentle steps around the sea goddess, giving her a wide berth. She noticed, and she gave him an arched eyebrow when he wrapped an arm around Masita.
It's true. Great sea goddess and sun goddess. Masita has been so incredibly supportive to Rin, and even to me as well. My life is better for knowing her.
You too. I don't deserve your loyalty.
Ueda walked closer to Sudaiba and whispered to her.
Can you believe these two? Especially the girl. And what's this debt?
Do you not remember? The Shinado who saved her from my daughter?
Wait, you mean your octopus daughter?
Yes. There was an altercation many voyages ago.
Ueda crossed her arms over her chest, and then she walked back toward Masita and the others.
Listen, this is a sacred island, so you can't go farther than the beach. Or else. Nightfall will be here in a couple of hours. If you promise to stay on the beach, you can stay the night.
Ueda snapped her fingers, and a bright flash engulfed the area. 4 logs sat around a magical campfire. Sudaiba waved her hand toward the canoe. A shimmer of magic rippled over the boat, and a large bead of magic swirled beside one of the logs. A pair of large baskets of food and several bowls of clear water appeared out of nowhere.
And I have replenished your supplies so you can leave in the morning. Do not tell your people or anyone about this island. And never return.
Or else.
After this voyage is over, I expect you to return to Kazai Island and answer for all of this.
Yes, ma'am.
She blinked once, and both goddesses were gone.
Wow. They're gone.
Masita, how do you know them? Are you a demigoddess?
No, I am not a demigoddess.
She drew in a deep breath and then finally relaxed her form. Her body grew about 20% bigger, both in height and in width. Masita's eyes became a light shade of purple, and her hair also took on the same mauve color. The very air rippled for a moment, and then everything became still and silent. Both Lycos and Rin gazed up at her, as she was now slightly taller than Lycos.
Masita is not my real name. My real name is Balia. You know, goddess of discord and mischief.
Rin sat on one log, and Masita, or rather Balia, sat across from her on the other log on the opposite side of the fire. Lycos was poised on the one to Rin's left. She had her elbows propped up on her knees, and her hands were clasped together. Rin peered over the flames to Balia. No, Masita, no matter who or what she was before, for the last 15 years, Masita had been a friend, a best friend, that still didn't make the ache in Rin's chest any less manageable.
Well, would you have believed me had I told you? I would have had to show you, and that would have ruined what I've been trying to do this whole time.
And what was it that you were trying to do? Toy with us?
Masita turned her attention toward her brother. A wounded expression as clear as the setting sun.
No! Never! I never once toyed with either of you!
She turned back to stare right at Rin.
I promise.
You mentioned you were repaying a debt. What debt are you repaying?
I owe my life to your grandma. She saved me once when she was going on her Voyage.
You were the lone traveler she saved from the clutches of the octopus demigoddess, aren't you?
How did you know?
Wait, I remember that story. Grandma told us. Once when I was like 4, that she once saved this lone Aoela, all alone on a little canoe.
Yeah, and that lone traveler was on the brink of being pulled under by Mulvada's tentacles. Our grandma swooped in and rescued her in time, right before the canoe was pulled under. Ueda mentioned an octopus daughter.
Yeah, that was me. Once, long ago, I was just out for a bit of fun, sailing on the ocean with my little canoe, not paying attention where I was going. And before I knew it, I had found myself in one of Mulvada's lairs. She was pissed.
But you're a goddess. Aren't you immortal?
We aren't exactly immortal. Any demigod or demigoddess can kill us or injure us.
The voice had come from behind her, and Rin jumped up to turn around. A ruggedly handsome man with long, lush brown hair, woven into thick braids, stood behind her. His braids trailed down his back, and he had a full brown beard on his face as well. A pair of alluring blue eyes sparkled and locked with her own. He was a fit and sexy man for sure. The man wore a really short brown skirt that was really free in the front. Rin felt her face blush, which caused the man to grin widely. A woman sat down on the other side of Mesita, and she wrapped an arm around Mesita's shoulder. The left side of her head had been shaved, and the right side had long brown hair. The new woman's green eyes locked on Mesita. Her bright yellow dress made her eyes pop. The last newcomer grinned at Mesita with wide eyes. He was a chubby fellow, but he appeared kind and approachable. He had a pair of soft brown eyes, shoulder-length black hair, and a black mustache and goatee combination. He wore a light brown loincloth rather than a skirt or pants. Mesita's eyes widened as she regarded all three. Lycos stood up and clenched both fists.
Whoa! Who are you?
The woman scoffed but grinned at him.
Easy there, buddy. We come in peace. Which is weird for the two of us.
Mesita wrapped the woman in a hug and started laughing.
Yeka! Yaka and Mujajala! Oh, my friends! I've missed you.
Wait, you're gods? Oh, and a goddess?
Yakon stepped over the log, and he sat down beside where Rin was before. He patted the spot, and Rin felt compelled to sit back down.
Yeah, the four of us were thick as thieves, the best of friends. Until, 15 years ago when you just disappeared.
We all really missed you. We thought you were dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, everyone. I just had to repay this debt. This is Rin, my best friend, and Lycos, my...
There was a long silence in the air, and Lycos' face scrunched up a little. He watched her, almost desperately waiting for an answer. And Mesita, she just looked back, a wave of uncertainty on her face.
You're what? What am I to you? Mighty Balia?
Wait. Balia. Did you and he?
Mesita's face grew so red, and she lowered her eyes for a moment. And then a wave of icy clarity washed over Rin.
You slept with Lycos? I thought it was just kissing.
It was a little more than kissing. Okay, a lot more.
Yeka patted Mesita on the back.
Way to go, Balia! Another notch in the tree trunk, huh? Well, since you've been gone,
I've taken the lead in our little contest. Still, nice job! This one is cute!
Lycos stood up, and his face contorted.
Another notch? So, I'm just another entry in a contest?
No! Legos, please understand. I'm literally thousands of years old.
Lycos stepped over the log and then he walked along the beach. Masita made a motion to get up, but Yeka held up a hand.
You should probably give him a couple minutes to cool down. Sorry about that, Balia. I didn't know he was going to react that way.
Well, the Aoela lead such short lives, so they are sensitive about things like that. That reminds me of this one story about the time that...
Hey, bruh. You don't want to bore the beautiful lady here with one of your unimportant stories, do you?
Yakon, the legendary god of male aggression, wrapped an arm around Rin's shoulder. However, despite the fact that he was so handsome and totally her type of guy, Rin gently took his arm off of her shoulder. The god leaned back a little, and then he got more serious.
I'm sorry. You are so handsome, and under other circumstances, I'd love to nestle into your chest. But, I have feelings for someone else. Strong feelings.
Thank you for being honest with me. Whoever this person is, they are super lucky. Can we be friends?
I'd like that.
Now might be a good time to go after your lover. I promise, we'll keep your best friend safe.
She is not your best friend. I am. Seriously. For like thousands of years.
Yeka! You're my goddess best friend. Rin is my Aoela best friend. You both matter to me so much. Please excuse me.
Masita ran in the direction where Lycos had headed. As soon as she was gone, Yeka crossed her arms over her chest and stared at Rin.
I have 1,000 years on you, Rin. That makes me the senior best friend.
All I'm hearing is that you're old.
Both Mojo Jala and Yakon laughed out loud, and even Yeka grinned.
You're not half bad, Aoela. We might get along, yet.
Lycos stopped after many minutes of walking, and he slowly raised his eyes to meet those of Sudaiba, the goddess of the sea. She had not been on the beach moments before, but then again, who was Lycos to say where she could or could not appear? His heart twisted as he lowered his eyes.
I'm not going further inland, Great Sudaiba. I just needed to walk around to clear my head.
Tell me, boy, what rips at your heart so fiercely? The fact that you were not the first? Or the fact that you might not be the last?
Tears welled in Lycos' eyes, and he sniffled where he stood.
She was my first, and for me, it was special. I love her. I love her, and I don't want to be just another notch. I want to be special to her.
It is difficult to be a goddess, or rather, one who doesn't have an end in sight. We linger on, while those we love wither and age. It doesn't mean that the ones we take aren't special. It is that we are burdened with outliving our lovers. Love comes in all forms, and it is more powerful and potent than we, even goddesses such as I or Balia, understand.
She placed a hand on Lycos' shoulder, and her touch sent streams of magic and power into him. His sadness started to waver a bit, and his heart became a little more calm.
I have had thousands of lovers over the years. Some of them were brief and fleeting experiences, while others lasted lifetimes. And they were all special to me. I cannot speak for Balia, but I would like to think that since she gave herself to you, that you are special to her.
Lycos gazed up at the sea goddess.
It's true! You are special to me, you big dummy.
Lycos turned around and noticed that Balia, the goddess of discord, the one who stole his heart under the guise of Mesida, was standing behind him. Her eyes were wet, and she held her left hand to the spot in the middle of her chest.
I haven't taken a lover in many years, so please don't think what we had wasn't important to me. Because it was. Sudaiba is right. Love is slightly different for us gods and goddesses because we last longer than the love does. It's heart-wrenching each time.
That is very true. I mourn the loss of each one I have taken.
Balia stepped forward and placed her palm against Lycos' face. Her other hand wrapped around his waist and became firmly planted against the small of his back.
I'm sorry that you felt or are feeling like I toyed with you. It's not true. I love you, Lycos, as much as I have loved anyone. Being around you for the last 15 years, well, you and Bryn are so special to me. You may still be hurting and confused, and that's okay. No matter what happens, don't doubt that you're in my heart.
Lycos stepped forward, and he hugged Balia. No. He hugged Mesida and let out a heavy sigh.
I love you, Mesida. It doesn't matter what you are, what you were, or what you will be. I will always love you.
The sea goddess let out a small laugh, but when Lycos looked back to where she was, they were alone. Mesida bent down and kissed Lycos softly.
Come on, let's get back to Rin and the others.
Lycos walked beside Mesida, and while it was odd at first to be the shorter of the two, he didn't quite mind. He was once only a fisherman, and even after the voyage, he would still probably be just a fisherman with a tattoo. The way of the gods and goddesses was a muddled thing, something he was glad he was not a part of. But then again, could he truly say that he wasn't in that realm now? As they got closer to the campfire, he heard Rin's laughter.
Oh no. What is he telling her?
He? Do you mean Mojo Jala? Did you two ever get...
Me and Mojo? No, never in 1,000 years. Besides, Mojo Jala doesn't get romantic or sexual feelings for anyone. His love has always been devoted to storytelling. And before you ask, me and Yakon never got together either.
What about you and Yeka?
Boys, I swear you're all the same. Yes, we did. End of story.
When they finally got to the edge of the campfire light, Mojo Jala was standing up, and a great smile was on his face.
And then Balia snaps her fingers, and the woman turns into a wild boar. It was a boar the whole time. Oh, the chieftain was so mad.
Aw, you told her that story?
Rin and Yakon sat next to one another, but thankfully the god of aggression kept his hands to himself. The other aggression goddess lounged on the log she sat upon, one leg crossed over the other.
Mesida, did you really teach a chieftain humility by making him...
I sure did. What else have they told you about me?
By the way, that reminds me. Why were Oida and Sudaiba so protective of this island? And why did it flash when we got here?
Well, I can't speak about why you flashed, but I can tell you about this island. It is sacred. Not only is it where all 4 of us were born, but it's where Mariu sleeps.
Wait, as in the Mariu, the goddess of islands and the creator of the Aoela people, Mariu.
Yeah, the very same. You know, it's weird, but she created all of you, and your ancestors created us through their imagination. In a way, she is our grandmother.
Which is why Sudaiba always babies us.
Rin turned around and gazed into the depths of the jungle for a moment, and then she bowed her head.
Oh, great Maoryu, thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for sacrificing so much for us.
A massive burst of lime green energy emanated from where Rin sat, and it rippled into the jungle.
Whoa!
Oh my goodness, it happened again. Maybe I shouldn't do that again. Otherwise, Ueda will probably be upset.
Lycos blinked, and when his eyes opened wide, the sun goddess was sitting cross-legged beside Rin. Sudaiba walked up from behind Lycos and Mesita, and she sat down on one of the logs.
It seems we're going to have to keep an eye on you two. You keep doing things.
I'm so sorry. I was just trying to give thanks.
While it is appreciated, we are going to ask you to stop until we investigate certain things.
Certain things, great Sudaiba.
It is wonderful to see you back to your old self, Mojo Jala. Please, tell us all another story. Another one about Balia.
Ugh, please, have mercy!
This story is about the time when Balia made all the clothes on Fanatu Island disappear.